This is lesson 197, Ecclesiastes chapters 9 through 12, Thoughts on Death, the final lesson in the book of Ecclesiastes. And we have once again been using Stoicism and Epicureanism as concepts to try to get inside the book of Proverbs and the book of Ecclesiastes. And we are ready to critique them, to critique Stoicism and Epicureanism. They both start at a material world. A material world where all that exists are just atoms bouncing off one another in a void, all this controlled by impersonal material forces, and yet I am called to live a rational, ordered life? Well, how is that possible? How is rationality, how is virtue, how is pleasure possible if all there is in the entire universe are just little particles and forces and equations? I mean, what else is there? Just numbers, everywhere numbers. For Stoicism, we say the end is reason, but then how am I supposed to comprehend my own reason? In the end, I just worship myself and turn myself into a cruel dictator if it decays in that way, where in a way it must. It must. In Epicureanism, we say that the world is all there is, and we try to live this good, temperate, thoughtful, sober life. But why not just a little hedonism now and again, and why not just a lot of hedonism, and it decays in that direction? So these noble pagan philosophies fail. But does Ecclesiastes fail? Of course not. It's part of the Bible, and this is our final lesson in it. And we see in this final lesson in Ecclesiastes a call to faith. A call to faith because, not in spite of, but because of the meaninglessness of this world, we are called to faith. We remember God saves us through suffering, not from suffering, but through suffering and meaninglessness. With all the cruelty of meaninglessness, this is part of the suffering through which God saves us. I've been focusing a little bit on the differences between Ecclesiastes and other books of the Bible, but here we see the same message here. God saves us through suffering. Those who trust in their own plans will fail. Only those who live by faith in a God they cannot always see, cannot always touch and feel, but through faith we know that He is always touching us. Yes, the book of Ecclesiastes definitely belongs in Scripture. To the text now, chapter 9, verse 1. For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knows either love or hatred by all that is before them. All things come alike to all. All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean, to him that sacrifices and to him that does not sacrifice. And that, of course, is death. It comes to everyone. As to the good, so as to the sinner, to him that swears and to him that feareth an oath. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all, yea, also the heart of all the sons of men is full of evil. Original sin here. The heart of all men, full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they're dead. For to him that is joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. And we could spend a long time on that verse there. Reminds me of Achilles in the afterlife, saying he would rather be alive and be a slave of a slave rather than being honored to some extent, I guess, in Hades. And it seems like a reversal. It's really not, but it seems like a reversal. Earlier, the preacher told us in Ecclesiastes that it was better to die than to be born. Now he says that a living dog is better than a dead lion. Why is that? Because the living know that they shall die. Oh, such faith in reason, such faith in this intellectual life, even though it's so self-defeating at the same time. But the living dog knows that it will die. What about the dead lion? The dead know nothing at all. The dead know nothing at all, neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Now, wait a second here. Is the author saying here that there is no afterlife? Who knows? That was the great comment on the afterlife earlier in the book of Ecclesiastes. Well, we'll wait 2 chapters, and as we get to the end of this lesson, we'll see what the author of the book of Ecclesiastes has to say about the afterlife. But here he's saying that the dead know not anything at all. Also, their love and their hatred and their envy, it's all perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepts thy works. Well, there's that phrase again, eat and drink and do good work, because this is all you have, this is all you are. Or is it? Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom you love all the days of the life of thy vanity. Oh, your life is meaningless, but that doesn't mean it's all bad. Live with joy this life of vanity with your wife, which he hath given thee under the sun. Oh yeah, your wife, by the way, gift from God. All the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou take under the sun. Whatsoever thy hand finds to do, do it with your might, all your might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, and that's where you're going. So if you want to build up a name for yourself, here's your chance. Work with all your might. That reminds me of Gilgamesh. He tried to find eternal life, failed. And then he said, well, these walls, the walls of Uruk, they will be my lasting testament. Well, they lasted for a while anyway. They're gone today, but that's what the preacher means. All is vanity. I returned, and I saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. They're all dead. Neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to the men of skill, but time and chance happens to them all. For man also knoweth not his time, as the fish are taken in an evil net, and as the birds that are caught in the snare, so are the sons of men snared in an evil time, when it falleth suddenly upon them. Yep, so intellectually you know that death will happen, but it's going to happen suddenly. No matter if you prepare your entire life for it, how can you prepare for something like that? And then it's over. This wisdom have I seen also under the sun, and it seemed great unto me. There was a little city, and a few men within it, and there came a great king against it, and he besieged it, and built a great bulwark against it. Now there was found a poor wise man in the city, and by his wisdom he delivered the city, yet no man remembered that poor man. He was forgotten. So there are prophets, there is wisdom, there is truth, but you'll never recognize it, and then it'll be forgotten. People might use it if they need to use something. They might even agree to use wisdom from this poor man. That doesn't mean they'll remember him. They'll just turn to something else till another king comes, a stronger king, and then the city really will be taken. So, as Solomon looked at this, what did he say? Then I said, wisdom is better than strength. Well, that's a good start. Nevertheless, it's the but there. Wisdom is better than strength, but the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. The prophets speak true, yeah, but they're not listened to. The words of the wise men are heard in quiet more than the cry of him that ruleth among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. Well, so are we turning it around now? The wise are heard, or at least they can be heard, or at least they can talk, or at least they can be there. Chapter 10. Dead flies cause the ointment to stink. So does a little folly in the reputation for wisdom and honor. He that digs a pit will fall into it, and whosoever breaks a hedge, a serpent will bite him. Breaking a hedge to try to steal someone else's stuff. Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning. They waste all their wealth. Blessed art thou, O land, when the king is the son of the nobles, and thy princes eat in due season, for strength and not for drunkenness. Why are you eating anyway? Even if you're a king, why are you eating? Is it just to gain joy, or is it to give you the strength to do something good, something that will last? But then again, nothing lasts. But that doesn't mean that you should be drunk all day, you rulers, that you cause extra misery to your people, because there's enough misery out there. He that observes the wind shall not sow, and he that regardeth the clouds shall not weep. If you need proof before you act, you will never act. So don't wait for some proof that it's better to do things the right way and to live with prudence and virtue. You just need to act and do it. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It's another way of saying it. Practical stuff here in the book of Ecclesiastes. If you just look at the wind all day, you'll never sow your seed. And if you wait for the perfect time to sow your seed, you'll never sow it. Just act now. And don't wait for the perfect time. And don't wait for proof that the seed will come up. One thing I can prove to you is that it's not going to come up unless you stop thinking and start planting. As you know not what is the way of the Spirit, nor how the bones do grow in the womb of her that is with child, even so you do not know the works of God who makes everything. In the morning sow thy seed, in the evening withhold not thy hand, for you know not whether it'll prosper. You don't know either this or that, or whether the both will be the same alike. But if a man lives many years and rejoices in them all, yet he will remember the day of his darkness. Oh, isn't that sad? But isn't it also true? You hear 9 good comments and have 9 good minutes of recreation, and then 1 comment or 1 minute of disappointment and pain and anger, and that's what you think about. The day of your darkness. For they shall be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the day of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. Therefore remove sorrow from thy heart, and put away evil from thy flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. And yet they're there, and they exist, and you do grow out of them, but they do not last. So here's some advice. Be a kid when you're a kid, and be an adult when you're an adult, and grow from one to the other, and don't blame yourself for not being an adult when you're a kid, and don't blame yourself for not being a kid when you're an adult. And with that, we turn to death. Death, Catechism 1007, is the end of earthly life. Our lives are measured by time, in the course of which we change. We grow old, and, as with all living beings on earth, death seems like the normal end of life. That aspect of death lends urgency to our lives. Remembering our mortality helps us realize that we have only a limited time in which to bring our lives to fulfillment. Here is a key difference between the Stoic and the Epicurean. The Stoic dwells in eternities, and these eternal forms and this eternal idea of the good. The Epicurean realizes that life is lived in this temporal realm. You only have a certain amount of time, and if all you can ever think about is the perfect, well, you're never going to get there. So why try? But we should try, and we should remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days have come not, nor the years draw nigh, when you shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Be a kid when you're a kid. Be an adult when you're an adult. But remember being a kid when you're an adult, and remember in your mind, remember being an adult when you're a kid. While the sun or the light of the moon or the stars be not darkened, this is time, nor the clouds return after the rain, this is a storm, this is chaos, but this is also life-giving water. In the days when the keepers of the house shall tremble, your legs lose their strength, and the strong men shall bow themselves, your arms and your back bent over, and the grinders cease because they are few, your teeth fall out when you're old, and those that look out the windows be darkened, your eyes don't work like they used to, nothing works like it used to, and the doors shall be shut in the streets. You don't have as many friends, or you don't enjoy your friends like you used to. And when the sound of the grinding is low, you can't hear anything, your ears don't work. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Your voice gets low, and you can't sing like you used to, and you just have no joy or music, your ability to experience joy decreases. And whether that has to do with brain chemistry, you could say it does. It doesn't add any meaning to it. And aren't we talking about materialism at the beginning of this lesson? Verse 5. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and the fear shall be in the way, and the almond trees shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because men goeth to their long home, and the mourners go about in the streets the day of your funeral. Or even the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Even reason and time, you lose your ability to think, to understand, to know, to recognize loved ones, to reason. Very sad, very scary. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return to God who gave it. So there is an afterlife in the book of Ecclesiastes. But is this spirit you, or is it just some sort of life-animating principle? Well, we know one thing, that the dust returns to dust. But where is our identity? Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. After the entire book of Ecclesiastes, we end exactly where we began. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, and notice here we are stepping away from the preacher perhaps. Is this Solomon finally commenting on the preacher? Was Solomon, whom we take to be the author of this book, commenting or weaving commentary throughout the book of Ecclesiastes? Well, here explicitly, because the preacher was wise, we have the narrator or the author commenting on the preacher. He still taught the people knowledge. Even though we couldn't learn or wouldn't learn or couldn't accept these hard truths, is the preacher, the prophet, the wise man trying to, or who didn't just try to save the city, did save the city. Moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed, and sought out and set in order many proverbs. The preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads, long sticks used to drive oxen. They are fastened like nails by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. Wisdom does still rule the city if it is in the heart of the king. And further, by these, my son, be admonished, by making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Well, that resonates with me. Don't study till you're never going to get to the end of it. By the making of many books there is no end. You just go on forever like that. And by study there is weariness of the flesh. People study so much they never act. He who observes the wind will never sow. You have to live this life that we've been given. And now, at long last, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Ready? Fear God and keep his commandments. There it is. That's the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. The end of the book of Ecclesiastes, the word of the Lord. So it is very different from other books in the Bible, but also it ends at the exact same point. Fear God, keep his commandments. Again, Proverbs told us, keep God's commandments because of what we can know, because we see that virtue is the right path, because of what we've been shown. Proverbs, keep God's commandments because of what you know. Ecclesiastes says exactly the same thing. Keep God's commandments for the exact opposite reason, because of what we don't know, because there are mysteries that we'll never be able to understand. Do good and avoid evil. Thomas A. Kempis said, vanity of vanities, all is vanity unless one strives to love and serve God alone. St. Teresa of Avila said, all is nothing and less than nothing, what passes away and does not please God. And we see a picture in negative of the Messiah, of God, of the divine Messiah in Ecclesiastes, because everything else is meaningless. I love that quote from St. Teresa of Avila. All is nothing and less than nothing. that passes away and does not please God. So with Stoicism and Epicureanism, we started out with materialism and ended up with failure. We need something real. We need something to live for. And that thing in the next book is love. Something worthy of all our effort, of all our mind, to love God and to love neighbor. Something that is in the world and yet transcends the world. Something that is, when I say worth your all, I mean mind and body, your emotional, your spiritual, your mental self, and that is love. And we'll get to that in the next book, but this has been Lesson 197.